This is the Lounge podcast brought to you by Record On Studios, hosting the Qatar Parenting Network. I'm excited to welcome Nasser Al Naama, media strategist and founder of the Zumra Business Network. Let's just pick up on that just for a moment then. First of all, welcome. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being here at the Qatar Parenting Network. The Zumra Business Network, let's just explain to people listening what that is.
Well, I'll try to summarize my answer as someone who is prone to going off tangentially into so many different directions. Zumra is inspired as someone who's really entrenched and rooted in my heritage, but in a very progressive way as well. I think I am the embodiment and the confluence of East meets West.
Right.
And, it's a work in progress because it's always a negotiation between so many different moving parts. But I am, I believe invariably someone who is constantly the ebb and flow of both and worlds colliding in one. Having said that, I'm very inspired by my heritage, my history, my land, my roots. Zumra is inspired from the Quran, and it means a coterie of people. So I've always been told, and I've always been exceptionally good at communicating with people and establishing connections, I believe, because I think it was a primal need in me to connect. And I believe that at the core and the nucleus of every business that one feels passionate about, they're essentially or fundamentally trying to innovate a solution to a problem that they've been faced with or that they've been challenged with. And I felt that in creating Zumra, I realized that the answers that I was searching for externally outside of myself lied really innately within me, which is that I was externalizing trying to seek and pursue refuge in others when I have always been the lightning rod and the steam engine that I was seeking, because I've always been good at just cross-cultural bridges, creating those cross-cultural bridges as someone who oscillates between Qatar and the rest of the world.
Okay. Well, look, I just want to sort of understand you as an individual from your childhood, your upbringing, and the influence your parents may have or have not had on you. But is there any moment from your childhood where you can look at your parents and sort of admire what they did, and then, but conversely, look at what they might have done differently? And what sort of effect has, you seem to be a very perceptive guy, understanding how your parents have shaped the guy you are today.
Yes, I mean, my parents, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this because there is value in telling the truth, but also, again, it's a lot of moving parts and nothing exists in binaries, right? So it's very nuanced. People change, they can evolve. That's why I'm not ideologically rooted in trying to vilify people over things they've done in the past. But that's easier said than done, right? So we don't do that perfectly, but we have to be mindful of it. That's why it's called conscious parenting. My parents did the best that they could in the time that they have, in spite, they've also, but they, what I was left with, they've made, in my opinion, choices that have left, lasting impact on me, whether good or bad. But I have to have the discernment and the wisdom to accept and radically accept that they did the best that they could, even the mistakes that have had lingering effects on me, because they loved me fiercely anyway. They loved me really, and they still do love me fiercely, to the point where I am entirely and completely indebted to them. My parents are still, at 37, still think of me, and I'm their firstborn. So,
right.
I'm very precious to them, and they love me fiercely and ferociously, so I'm thankful to them, and I wish everyone the blessing of having parents like mine.
Right. Well, it's wonderful to hear that. Look, they've shaped you to be a strong guy, a strong individual guy. But let's talk about where we fit into sort of like-minded communities and the support that networks like the Qatar Parenting Network can offer. You're here, you've offered some fascinating insights. Is it a sort of necessary survival tool for modern life now that we have these support networks around us, at least as an option for people?
Actually, yes, I wanted to emphasize on that point. Physiologically, according to the statistics, and you can cross-reference this and verify it with, a whole, Google or ChatGPT. But isolation kills you, so I think people thrive in communities. And it's actually really a pillar of our religion in Islam, so it's not foreign. So I think we actually have to just be reminded of our own heritage, really, historically, Islamically, that not long ago, there was actually more tight-knit communities. Qatar is a tribal society, and that's very related and married into each other, but I think it goes beyond that. It's not just familial kinship, it's actually the effort that goes into cultivating and nourishing individual bonds, and we do really thrive with each other and in supporting one another. And I think the thing that makes any country worth staying in is the community that exists there, and if it's formidable and it's how supportive it is, if you're having support networks, because you can't effectively try to change yourself, even if you have the willpower and the desire, the urgency to want to do it, but you need to have people who hold you accountable, and you need you can't live in a vacuum. You need people to be your soundboard and people to hold you accountable and people to care about you. So these things, they pay out in dividends. Qatar specifically, because we live in Qatar. I am from this land. It's a beautiful country. It's a small one. But now I think it's time to, and in alignment and also in accordance with the National Vision 2030, it's about unlocking human potential and we have to really walk the talk. We really have to actually implement that in terms of our policy. And things like this, they go a long way. It's where the value is, and there's money to be made through community. People forget that. They actually really do. Retain, your customers and clients and whatever business you have through inculcating and cultivating and nourishing and nurturing community efforts.
Within communities, I've heard you say this as well, that it's important that children inherit what you say is freedom, not fear. We live in a generation now where there's an immense amount of pressure from outside bearing down on us. Each generation is different. Tell us about that notion of sort of freedom, not fear, and what the sort of deeper truth that might hold.
Well, I think that speaks of, that really does harken back to an era where I grew up, where I still struggle with this because, that's all the normal, that it's really embedded in your unconscious, so it's trying to untangle and untether yourself from your own conditioning. Corporal punishment and physical beating was very common and rearing us as children, even in schools. So I grew up in a time where corporal punishment with, physical forms of what would constitute modern-day abuse was common, but things change, people evolve, we have to have these conversations. I would like to believe that, and trying to uncondition yourself and rewire your brain into thinking that's not normal. So you realize in hindsight that you can have things like have the grace and the wisdom to accept that it wasn't done with the malicious intent, but the outcome is still the same, and it's not the best form or modality to parent. I think this is really interesting, conscious parenting, as in I think the biggest reward is having your children respect you without necessarily fearing you. I don't think love and your truest potential, you can thrive truly in an environment that is built on fear and tyranny. I think, that's in the micro and the macro. That's in society in general. I think if you really want the best out of people, they should be willing and wanting and volunteering to offer it, not because they're being pricked and tyrannized into doing so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and it's sort of like been really some in-depth and some insightful comments that you've made, and we're grateful for that. So Nasser Al Naama.
Thank you. Can I just add if I would like to encourage your followers to follow us on our social media accounts respectively and engage with us and reach out. And if you have any ideas, we're more than open to hear them out, and we'd love to engage everyone. And yeah, Qatar deserves the best. I'm very proud to be from this country.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, my friend.